Hey there. Every single one of us is on this incredible journey, right? A story that starts way back at the beginning and just keeps going our entire life. So today, we're going to dive into the science that actually helps us make sense of that journey. It gives us a whole new map for seeing how we grow and change.
I mean, it's a huge question, isn't it? Just think about everything that happens from the moment we're born to our later years. It's so complex. How do scientists even start to tackle that whole story? Well, for a long time, the answer was kind of simple. A little too simple, actually.
So, the old school way of looking at our lives was pretty straightforward. You're born, you grow up, you hit your peak in your 20s, and then, well, it's all kind of downhill from there. But that view is just totally out of date now. The modern way, the lifespan perspective, sees it completely differently. It says development is this ongoing process of growth and change that happens throughout our entire lives. So why the huge shift in thinking? What happened? Well, it's down to one really dramatic reason. We just started living so much longer. The whole game changed in the 20th century because human life expectancy basically exploded.
And I mean, the scale of this is kind of hard to wrap your head around. Because of things like better sanitation, nutrition, and medicine, we added a whopping 30 years to the average life expectancy in the US in just a single century. 30 years. All of a sudden, that old grow, peak, and decline model just didn't hold up. There was way too much life left to explain.
So, to make sense of these new, longer lives, we needed a new set of rules, a totally new framework. And that is exactly where the lifespan perspective comes in. Let's break down the principles that guide this whole new way of thinking.
Okay, so here's the big idea, the core of it all. The lifespan perspective, which was really pushed forward by experts like Paul Baltes, sees our development not as some straight line, but as this dynamic, interactive process. It's this mashup of our biology, the culture we live in, and the choices we make, all of it working together to shape who we are.
So what are these new rules of the road? First up, development is lifelong. That means no single age is the star of the show. It's also multi-dimensional. Your body, your mind, your social world, they're all deeply connected. And it's multi-directional. You might gain wisdom as you get older, even if your reaction time slows down a bit. Some things go up, while others go down. Then there's the idea that it's contextual. Your family, your school, the historical moment you're born into, all of that shapes you. And finally, and this one is a real game changer, your development has plasticity.
And out of all of those principles, that last one stands out. It's probably the most powerful and honestly the most hopeful idea of them all. The fact that we are not permanently set in stone. This capacity for change is what we call plasticity. And here's why it's so amazing. It's not just for kids. We have research showing that cognitive skills in older adults, we're talking people in their 70s and 80s, can actually be improved with training. It means we can adapt, we can learn, and we can grow at literally any age. Okay, so if our development is this lifelong, adaptable process, what's actually driving it? What are the fundamental engines under the hood that shape who we all become?
Well, scientists point to these three engines that are all working together. First, you've got your biological processes. That's your genes, your brain development, hormones, all that physical stuff. Then you've got your cognitive processes, how your thinking, intelligence, and language change. And finally, your socio-emotional processes. That's your relationships, your emotions, your personality. And the key thing to remember is that you can't separate them. Think about a baby smiling at a parent's touch. That one little moment is all three things happening at once. It's biological, cognitive, and emotional.
And what's really fascinating is that these three building blocks don't just work together. They also lead us straight to the biggest, most timeless questions in the entire science of human development. First up, the all-time classic, nature versus nurture, right? How much of who you are is your genetic blueprint and how much is shaped by your environment, your family, your friends, all your life experiences? Then you've got the whole stability versus change debate. Are the core parts of your personality, like being shy or being outgoing, are those things pretty much locked in when you're young, or can you fundamentally change and become a different person over time? You see how this one gets right back to that powerful idea of plasticity. And finally, there's the question of continuity versus discontinuity. Is your life's journey a smooth, gradual process, kind of like an oak tree slowly growing bigger and bigger over time, or is it more like a series of distinct, dramatic stages, like a caterpillar suddenly transforming into a butterfly? Now, most experts today will tell you it's actually a pretty complex mix of both. So, after all this theory, what's the big takeaway for you?
Why does seeing your own life through this lens actually matter? Let's bring it all home.
Look, at the end of the day, this perspective isn't just some academic theory. It's a toolkit for your own life. It's about understanding that no single event or age is ever going to define you, and that every single chapter of your story holds the potential for growth, for maintenance, and for change.
I've got to say, I absolutely love this quote. It just perfectly captures this idea that we're all connected in this one, long, unfolding human story, linked together across generations by our hopes, our dreams, and our ability to imagine what's next.
So I want to leave you with this one thought. If your story is lifelong, if you always have the capacity for change, and if that story is constantly being written, what's your next chapter going to be about?